Hi, this is Holly, Joyful Warrior, Spirit Initiated Shaman. And this month of December, as a holiday gift, I've decided to share something each day on the Joyful Warrior Shaman School platform, Facebook, to inspire our collective journey into all becoming shaman. After all, becoming a shaman is the next natural step in human evolution. It's the next natural opening for our spiritual bodies to move deeper into the physical and enlighten us. We're all becoming enlightened. And, there's a little bit of a bell curve for that happening. And you could say that I was tapped a little early as a pioneer in the journey to help break trail and, you know, leave some crumbs behind and make the trail a little bit easier, the snowpack a little softer, so that you know where to place your foot if you're looking for a little greater foothold and standing inside of your own spiritual development, your own shamanic becoming. So I'm gonna just start with a little sage and lit this beautiful beeswax candle and take a little sage and just intend that the clarity would extend to wherever you are and that we can connect in this way. There's really no distance between us when we open our hearts. So wherever you are in time and space, hello. So yesterday I told a story that is inspired by a shamanic journey about the old woman, an experience that I had meeting myself, who I will be hundreds of years from now. um, Today, I feel inspired to share a different kind of story. It's a shamanic story that happened in the waking world. I call this physical world the waking world, the world that we interact with when our eyes are open in a physical way. And I call the spiritual world that we interact with when our hearts are open, the shaman's territory. And for me, that includes the waking world. I always see the world, whether I'm interacting in a physical way or just in the realm of spiritual consciousness, as vibratory and full of information that's coming on a very subtle physical wavelength level that can rise to the level of thought and vision and communication invisibly, because we are radios. They're all transistor radios. And I'll talk about that more and more as I delve into what it means to be a shaman. But I want to share this story because it's, I think, meaningful on so many different levels. So I'll begin. Let's call this story all I just see is a McDonald's cup of orange juice in the center of a car in its cup holder. So let's just call it the orange juice story. So years ago, in about 2012, I was a student at the Rudolf Steiner college in Fair Oaks, California. And I was studying the foundational material of Rudolf Steiner that eventually leads one to becoming a Waldorf teacher. But I was more interested in the esoteric teachings of Rudolf Steiner. He's one of the most amazing shamans to ever live. And I highly recommend diving into all that he has written. So I was immersed in his teachings and in the teachings that were the impulse of the college. And part of the curriculum is a lot of dynamic art. And we had drawing classes and painting and sculpting, gardening, eurythmy, which is the kind of dance, and philosophy. And we also had speech, music, and choir. And this particular story starts in the choir practice, the choir class. There was a teacher that I had, amazing, beautiful woman. And whenever she would sing, I would see this bright, effervescent white aura around her start to glow and glow and glow. And as she would sing the higher notes, I could tell her crown chakra would become even wider and brighter and more clear. She's just this amazing, amazing channel, beautiful person. She still is. Beautiful person, amazing singer. And but on this occasion, in the middle of the semester somewhere, when she was in her teaching space and I was perceiving her aura as normal and she was singing, something else was there. Something else was in her aura, and I could see it very clearly as a not as a distinguished form like a person, but as you could say a gray cloud of consciousness that was sitting inside of her own. So it was like wasn't a dark gray, it wasn't a dark sinister, it was just like another essence of form of consciousness was fairly visible inside of her body, in her wider aura as well, all around her. And she felt a little off to me, like not quite settled in her normal self. And as synchronicity or the invisible magnetism of all things that know their way in life would have it, she came and sat next to me after class that day, and she just started talking. And she was sharing how she didn't feel a sense of joy that day like she normally felt. I think her words were, I woke up today feeling really heavy and confused and not quite myself. And of course, I could see that she wasn't. I could see that she wasn't. And I could feel it even more than I could see it, that the vibrational register in her was her normal soul mixed with something else, something I couldn't quite see quite clearly yet. And began to feel this overwhelming feeling of regret and longing. Regret and longing was the dominant, you could say, frequency of the dial of the consciousness that was within her that wasn't her. And, we talked for a little bit longer, and then I had to go to my next class. And, it continued on like this for a couple of days, maybe 3 or 5 days. And so I went up to her myself after class and I said, "Have you felt any different?" She said, "No, it's just been this really weighted thing." And I said, "Well, would you just mind if I took a little longer and, kind of shifted my consciousness a little deeper so I could kind of perceive what's going on here? Because um, everything feels a bit off." And she said, "Sure, yes, of course." Everybody in the college knew I was a shaman. And um, so they were used to me behaving like this. And all of a sudden, she said to me, "A boy died. A boy down at the high school died just last week. He committed suicide." And I started to nod because the consciousness that was coming through her these many days was sad and regretful, longing, and also confused. And like the consciousness wasn't fully, it's not that I wasn't fully conscious, but it wasn't fully uh it didn't have a drive behind it like a demon's consciousness does. Demonic consciousnesses, they have a point of origin outside of the body, and they have a consciousness with a particular intent that has uh, a feeling of expanse, of um, old origin. So when I encounter demonic consciousnesses in people, there's not an unformedness to it. There's a specific energy and intention with it. So you could say that a demon, like the consciousness of a demon, is a bit sharp, like a sword point, and it's got a really clear intention of what it's seeking to do. And for me, I can feel that pretty quickly and then follow it to the origin of the demon itself and unhook it. And of course, those are journeys for another day to talk about. But um, this consciousness wasn't like that at all. It wasn't like the pointiness of a sword. It didn't have that quality of focus. It was more like the feeling of a child who had maybe ridden his bike and fell down and was confused and sad and needed help. But I couldn't get the clear distinction yet that it was a child. I just could feel this like confusion and desire for help, and also this feeling of longing and regret. So it was a bit more soft and malleable, and it didn't really know itself so much so clearly, the point of it. But as she started to talk, I could see it I could see the light of its consciousness in her eyes. And I started to get waves of images. And it was like I was being hooked into the memory of this boy, and his heart, his love, his hopes, his wishes, his regrets, and his need. He had a need to communicate something. And he had found this teacher who also was in connection with the people that were down at the high school, which was just down the road from college I attended. And so she told me the story of how he died. And she didn't know all the details, of course, but she just shared what she knew, which is that this boy who was on her son's soccer team, so they were friends. One day he drove to the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and he just jumped. He just jumped and lost his life, and chose to end his life, and he did. So, she spoke to me about that, and I could see and feel more clearly what was going on. There was a being in her body, this boy, and she was the most open conduit that the boy could find after he died to try to communicate something. And I right away, well, even while she was talking to me, I just kept seeing this cup from McDonald's in the middle of the car. I just kept seeing this drink inside of the car. And I don't know why, it just kept coming to me, coming to me. I didn't know why at the time. So we had that conversation, and she was feeling, she was feeling really off, and now I'm more aware that it wasn't just her own, that it had something to do with this boy. And when I let her know that I could see him in her eyes, she was a spiritual woman, not somebody that would ever imagine another being, a being within her that had passed on. But she said, I have felt really connected, so connected to him and his family and all of this happening. And I'm not surprised. What am I supposed to do? And so I said, well, I'll drum tonight. So I went home and I connected with her from my own sanctuary, from my own center, and with the school itself, the land of the high school. And I reached out, and I was seeking to communicate with the boy, and why was he within this choir teacher's being, and what could I do to help, to listen, to be of service. And I was just shown this this drink of orange juice still over and over again. And then it grew from there into words that the boy wanted to tell me. And he said he didn't mean to die. That actually is not why he went there. He thought he could fly. He said he thought he could fly. He believed that he was so um, full of, that feeling when you're really young, that you can have where you just feel like you could do anything, and that maybe you're a superhero. Maybe you've read stories about superheroes and you feel like it could be one. And he wanted to do something to prove to himself that he was. And he said, no, it wasn't because I didn't feel loved. He said, no, it wasn't because I was, depressed. He said, I thought I could fly. I thought that if I jumped off of that bridge, that something would happen and I would show the world who I really am. And then he said, as soon as he crossed over, and he showed me that he really didn't feel any pain. He said he was just like a quick burst of something, and then he was outside of his body. That he felt so horrible and so sad for his mother, his family, his brothers, his mother and father, and um and that he needed his mom to know. He needed his mom to know why and how he died, and that he's okay, and that he couldn't go on to where he felt that there was an ability that he had then to go um to merge again with the all, um through the portal of heaven, because his mother and his brother and his family was in so much pain that he was trying to communicate how and why he died was not out of anything that they did wrong. And this happens. There are those of us that are more open to hearing and receiving than others. And people that were in bodies but are no longer in bodies, they will find channels. They'll find those who are light filled, who are connected, and they can perceive beyond the physical realm easier. Not just people that recently passed, like this boy, but recently crossed the threshold. We say in the Rudolf Steiner language, you cross the threshold. But also spiritual beings that want to be of service, benevolent beings that want to be of service to humanity, like the chief that came to me, the Native American elder being. I was someone that could hear what he had to say. And so he approached me. And so if you've had any encounters that are with supernatural consciousnesses, otherworldly beings, or people who have recently crossed a threshold, just understand that there's a sensitivity that you have that's allowing you to perceive them. And it's wise to receive training. My training really came from the spirit realm. The chief that came to me is who has trained me for the most part. But if we don't receive training when we have these gifts, what can happen is all manner of possession and things can take over us in negative ways that we don't understand. or we can just be overwhelmed with the emotions of others that are not ours. A lot of empathic people have this, and they have awareness of it, but everybody has it, even without awareness, even without feeling really, really sensitive. So, anyways, in this experience, this boy found this choir teacher who found me. And I was able to actually have a conversation with him when I went into a deeper meditative state. And so I asked the choir teacher, could I ask to speak with the mother? Because the boy needed to speak with the mother for him to have peace. So that was arranged. And we met. We met on a park bench in a place of nature. And she was shy and, of course, overcome with grief. And I was shy too, to be inserting myself into her personal experience as a stranger and somebody who just is kind of coming out of nowhere saying, hi, I can talk to your son who's on the other side. But she was open to it. And the first thing I said to her was, the first thing that I could see in communicating to your son was that he had gone to McDonald's that morning. And as soon as I said that, she started to cry. And I was like, okay. And he got a large orange juice, and she started to cry more. And I think he got maybe, like a breakfast sandwich or something. And she started to smile a little bit. And then she just started to talk about that. And she said that was his favorite thing. Every morning we would go through the drive-through for breakfast because that's what he always wanted. Not every day, but like on a good day when we had time, I would get him his favorite breakfast. And that's what it was. And she said, and he just loved orange juice. So it was the first thing that came that allowed her to have the greatest trust, that I was sharing communication that was directly from him, because nobody knew that about him, that knew me in any sort of way. So I was able to tell her, I'm sure you must feel terrible. I mean, I have a son. I have a son. He's 22 now, and he was in middle school then. And so I was speaking to her from a place of empathy, from being a mother, and just, I can't imagine what this is like, but I just want you to know that it's not your fault in any way. He wants you to know that. And it makes me just tear up a little bit thinking about it, and how she responded. So I told her, everything that he had to say. And she just had a completely different affect take over her, where she was just like, oh my gosh, he had just been reading stories about heroes that she knew of, and it made so much sense. And he always believed in magic, and and that he was just an inspired child. And I said, well, he's here right now, and with me in my consciousness, and you can ask questions. So she did. And that conversation between the two of them was very personal, that I was able to help facilitate. Yeah. Sometimes having the ability to be like a radio, an instrument of clear transmission from the other side, is filled with great responsibility to help other people's lives, because we're not here in a concrete, hollow world, and we don't just somehow come from electrical impulses inside a mechanical, biological form. It's not what this is, it's not what we are. Everything is spirit, everything is light, everything is thought. If you can imagine a radio show that you're listening to, that when you hear it, it also forms all the physical experience of all of the details that are in the radio show around you. I think they call that virtual reality right now. Like you're in the middle of it's like the hologram, you're in the middle of an expanse of no space, and then there's this vibratory field that's creating form that seems solid around you. This is not the talk to go into all of the nuances of reality and what is not reality. But the things that we think are so important, the materialism that governs our lives, that on some level we have to be concerned with, because we are all prisoners at war, so to speak. We live in a realm where there's power dynamics at play, and we have to work within that in order to eat and drink and have shelter and have lives that are not full of stress from day to day, have a little bit of some sort of feeling of certainty in some ways. And at the same time, what's real is love and intent and the laws of the universe and the ways in which vibration becomes form. And we are creating all the time through our inner magi. This is a day that I wanted to share because it speaks to how, as we open our hearts, we can connect with those on the other side. And that can bring inspiration and greater peace to our lives. It also shares how things can be happening for reasons we would never imagine for people around us, even someone who is our child. You know, the thoughts and the feelings of any individual are very personal, and we all have a tendency to criticize ourselves and to feel that we're responsible for other people's tragedies or lack of happiness or happiness. Are they happy? Are we making them happy enough? And sometimes people are just on their own journeys. When I say people, I mean souls. Souls are on their own journeys. And from where we are, whoever we are, we really can't judge. If you have an eagle's eye, you can see the beginning of the spirit seed's journey from its original high architecture of spiritual origin through its ensouled experience in living dimensions, nature dimensions, to know itself in form. So a spirit can know itself in form. I always think for the purpose of being held and holding, expressing and receiving and celebrating life, the wonder of it all, the wonder of consciousness, and feeling that sense of I am in existence, and existence is good. And so let's dance. I also shared it because um, it's possible that we are meant to receive communication from the other side. And sometimes that looks like another person that has passed that wants to communicate something that's important to them for their peace and their ability to release attachment to this lifetime and heal and evolve and merge and rest back into the wholeness of light. But sometimes it's because in our own life, there's information that we need to get to advance us in particular ways that benevolent beings can help with. And sometimes it's because there are beings that do not have our best interests in mind, that are trying to muck around with our potential to help bring heaven to earth, and to get in the way of it, get in the way of the progression of all things, materializing love into life, which is the evolutionary path of all creation. Love is meant to find itself in form and in existence and in experience. Love is birthing love. And like all birth, there can be a little pain involved. So singing is a wonderful way to open up the crown chakra, actually all the chakras, and to merge more fully with the light that you are, and to connect with higher frequencies that can elevate your being. As a side note, in the future, I'll do a talk, probably many, on singing and toning and light language and shaman songs and soul songs and all of that, which is some of the strongest tools, or I would say even weapons, like a sword or a spear. You can have a song that is something that you want to know how to use at the right time as a shaman. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and maybe let it bring to mind any experiences that you've had where you think maybe someone from the other side has been seeking to speak with you. Maybe recall, if you can, feeling inspired through an emotion without really knowing knowing actual words or thoughts specifically that are coming to you, but just something from an emotional place, which is the first language of all beings, all creatures, all those in existence, including plants and crystals, moods, feeling tones, like the notes on a piano or a guitar. Everything has a notes that it's playing that can hit you at just the right way, that can give you a clear communication about it, register within you, and then you can make sense of it. I also wanted to tell this story today because, you know, I am well, if you look at me, you'd say, well, I'm a white woman. I think that calling somebody a color is not really appropriate personally. I mean, everybody is colorful and nobody is just one color. And if you look at somebody, you can't tell who is, genetically in their ancestry. You really can't. Um, and so I'm a collage of different heritages that you would necessarily be able to recognize by looking at me, like all people. But from the surface, yeah, I'm a white woman, and here I am saying I'm a shaman. I'll talk about this from time to time. It's been obviously something that comes up for people when they meet me. But what I'd like to say is that, at least today, is that there are soul, there are there are souls, and there are consciousnesses within land um, that are awake and know themselves, not as they know themselves that they're not lost souls. They're not confused about how to move on to the other side, or they don't need help. They're what I call the spirits of the land. And every place you go has its own spirits of the land. And the spirits of the land are primarily the most recent indigenous group that has existed in that space, that land. But not always, because there's also like Paleolithic ancestries in land that goes way, 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 way back to the time when there was other civilizations. So there's layers of ancestry that a land can hold. But the spirits of the land, the souls that inhabit the land itself, the nature itself, that live within the nature itself, they are aware that they are not alive in bodies, and they're not trying to be. But what they do is they pray. And usually they drum and they sing and they use other kinds of mechanisms to pray that feel like music in the body. And they are praying with a vision inside of their hearts, which is the earth itself being whole and healthy. So instead of moving on when they die consciously. That's what the Tibetans say is the highest goal of their spirituality, is to be able to die consciously. So you step into death awake. And these are beings, the spirits of the land, who've done that. So they're usually not the natives in an area that have been massacred. They were perhaps their elders or their elders' elders that died peacefully and with prayer. And they had an intention to stay in the land and hold it in a good way for their descendant. And, we're now here, wherever we are. And they are seeking to speak to us, just like the boy who was looking for someone to talk to help his mom not feel so sad when he crossed the threshold and flew from the bridge, and did live, but in a different way. these spirits of the land, they are speaking to whoever can hear them. And remember, love and be stewards of the earth and come out of the insanity of materialism and power dynamics into the memory of what we know in our hearts is meant to be the world we live in. And the chief that touched my heart, that taught me what I know about how to connect with the spirit world, he is one of those beings whose task it is to drum and pray and teach any open heart that will listen. So our task is not to be somehow significant as a shaman. That is so ridiculous. And our task is not to be somehow significant and like rich from making money from experiences that take us out of our bodies and into the spirit world while we still have a body to inhabit. No, I mean, ultimately there's meant to be a whole other emergent economic system that exists for us so that we all have plenty. The spirits of the land and the chief that I work with as my guide, it's their purpose to protect innocent souls, to bring rain when needed, to encourage the crops to grow and us to have food. What they see in their hearts is the pristine earth, and they're communicating to us to redirect our priorities into activity which will bring the earth into balance. And by the earth, also not just the natural world, but the systems that we have for right relationship and living with the earth as a conscious being and a being that can communicate, and all living things and one another. So hopefully, as you continue to listen to me, you will have the ability to learn something that comes from direct knowledge, direct experience, and a certain level of mastery of what it means to walk in the world as a shaman, as a spiritual man or woman, blended being. And I look forward to telling you more stories. And feel free to comment and ask me questions if you have any. Thank you. Until we meet again.